Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fam Sports New York Varsity. I'm your host, Frank Langella, joined by my co-host, Marsilio Langella. And Mars, this is our Week 2 preview for Section 1B, the C and D, Section 1 C and D, and the Hudson Valley Football League. We've crammed all three of those together, got a bunch of teams, a bunch of games to talk about, and we're excited to be back doing our weekly preview. And we want to welcome our audience. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. And if you guys are new to us, we break down Section 1 football, the games, the players, go deep into some X's and O's. And so make sure you guys follow us if you want that coverage for Section 1. Follow us on all those social media accounts that you can see on the screen. And you can get all our content from our website at famsportsny.com, where, again, you can get the content. If you want to donate to the show, you can do that, and we appreciate any donations. If you like any of the merchandise, pick up some of the merchandise. Again, really do appreciate the support. And let's just go into the show, Mars. And what's going to happen is we're going to go over the games that are on slate for this weekend from the classes and the Hudson Valley Football League. We'll go over a couple games of the biggest intriguing games, and then we'll pick all the games at the end. All right, you ready to go for it?
I'm ready to roll.
All right. And so let's go over the games. And first off, a lot of, the mix of Friday and Saturday games, but first game up Friday, Putnam Valley 0-1 at Hen Hud, who's 0-1. That's a 6 o'clock game. Friday, Pearl River 0-1 at Pleasantville, who is 1-0. Bronxville 1-0 at Nanuet is on Friday. Hudson Valley Football League game, Goshen, who is out of the section, is coming to Horace Greeley. It was originally supposed to be Ramapo, but I'm not sure why that game got canceled. But Goshen steps in, is going at Greeley, who is 2-0. Saturday, Dobbs Ferry, who's 1-0 at Rhinebeck, who's 0-1. And the C&D matchup on Saturday, Albertus Magnus, who's 1-0, is at Tuckahoe, who's 1-0. Saturday, Byram Hills, who's 0-1, is at Westlake, who's 1-0. Saturday, Ardsley, 1-0 at Briarcliff Hamilton Football Program, who's 0-1. Another Hudson Valley Football League game, Saturday, Poughkeepsie, who is 0-1, is at Peekskill, who's 0-1. A C matchup, Valhalla, who's 1-0 at Blindbrook, who's 0-1. And then Crone Harmon, who's 0-1 at Hastings, who is 0-1 on C matchup on Saturday. And then another C&D matchup, Haldane, who's 1-0 at Woodlands, who's 0-1. And finally, to wrap it all up, another Hudson Valley Football League game on Saturday, Irvington, who's 1-0, is at Edgemont, who is 0-1. So those are the games on slate. Let's talk about a couple of them, Mars. And let's stick with the game, last one I mentioned, the Hudson Valley Football League. Irvington, who's 1-0, at Edgemont, who's 0-1. And last week, Irvington won versus Peekskill, and Edgemont lost to Greeley. And when I look at these two teams matched up, and this is two teams that have been in the Independent League a few years before this season, Edgemont is 10-3 versus Irvington, including winning 4 straight. The last time they played each other was 2019. So Edgemont has kind of owned this matchup. And let's start with Irvington. I thought offensively, this is an Irvington team with a new coaching staff, trying to set a new culture. And I thought with the limited time that they've practiced, I thought offensively, they were pretty productive. And you're going to see, coming out in the spread, they're going to move the ball around to different guys, give guys different opportunities. Picola, Balkin, Schrader, they all made plays. Clearly, Shimmer, they had touchdown catches. You just see different names and different guys get the opportunity. And I thought they jumped on Peekskill pretty quick. And I think they went up 27-0 at halftime. So pretty good game plan and pretty good execution on the offensive side. And defensively, again, they're going to go up against the spread looks. You're going to see 2x2. You're going to see trips. You'll see some 2-backs from Edgemont. And Edgemont's going to want to run the ball. So the big thing is going to be up front, how can they hold up? And the inexperience at linebacker, how are they going to play? I thought they did pretty well against Peekskill. I think this is going to be a bit of a jump up in competition for that defense. On Edgemont, Mars, offensively, I talked about it. You're going to see those spread looks. And I thought last week the offensive line did a solid job opening up holes for the running backs who ran pretty hard. And again, they're not very big, but they racked off a handful of 10-plus yard runs last week against a solid Greeley front. So that was a pretty good job by Edgemont. And quite frankly, I'm anticipating them to spread that defense out to try to create some of that openings for those running backs to hit those 10 yards plus and to get those long extended drives and to open up that play action pass where they can hit some deep balls. And defensively, again, last week the quarterback run really hurt Edgemont, and I'm interested to see how Irvington attacks that. I don't think they have the same personnel that Greeley had, but I'm interested to see how they're going to attack that with again, kind of those counter action, read action, power read type stuff with the quarterback. And they, defensively, Edgemont just has to improve their tackling. They had too many missed tackles that really hurt them and really let up some big chunk plays. So I'm interested to see how Edgemont attacks this Irvington offense. Mars, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I feel like the new staff, you would expect that Irvington's offense might struggle, but they looked pretty efficient. And I think that they're running through the spread. They like to kind of pass the ball around to a lot of different guys, which I think is really effective because you just don't know who's going to really hit you, especially from the other side of the ball. And I think that when you look at what Irvington needs to do, I feel like they need to kind of just continue this momentum. And I think that on defensively,
attack. They like to be balanced.
Yeah, keep it balanced. And I think that defensively, you have an inexperienced linebacker, so it's going to be important for your front to really keep everything contained and really try to keep everything at the line of scrimmage so that it really helps out your linebackers. Really take up a lot of those blocks, unfortunately, and give your linebackers more space to play.
Make plays, yeah.
Yeah, make some plays, and just because if they start getting hit a little bit, it's just not going to benefit.
And Edgemont wants to get a body on a body and create some lanes so that those backs can hit those plays. Yeah. And quarterback runs, too, is another one.
Yeah, and Edgemont, I mean, when you look at their offensive line, they did a very good job at opening the lanes, and I feel like you said, they want that to happen again. But it's really going to be dependent on the efficiency of this offensive line. I think that's going to be the thing I will look for this game. And defensively, I really think they need to just improve their tackling. I think if they do that, then I think that they should have an advantage in this game, in my opinion.
Yeah. Next game I want to talk about, Mars, is the CD matchup, and it's Albertus Magnus, who's 1-0, at Tuckahoe, who's the D school, who's 1-0. And last week, Albertus Magnus beat Hastings. Tuckahoe beat Woodlands. Tuckahoe is 5-1 in this matchup versus Albertus Magnus since 2004, including winning 4 straight. But the last time they played each other was 2013. So it has been quite a few years. Let's start with Albertus Magnus. Offensively, Mars, the pass attack wasn't quite there. I thought they made some plays, but, they also made some mistakes and they missed some throws. And I'm interested to see the quarterback, rebound this week. He went 6 of 11, right, which is not bad, 84 yards, but had an interception, which was a touchdown. It was a pick 6. And so, I don't want to butcher his name, but Argenino. I'm interested to see, because this is a guy who could be a dual threat guy. He ran the ball pretty well. He made some nice throws. But you want to limit those mistakes and see how he improves. Because they have some wide receivers, right? And you got Metcalf, you got Joseph. And what really impressed me about this Albertus Magnus offense was the rush attack. They ran for 190 yards. Guys like Savory went over 100 yards. LaRusso had a touchdown. The rush attack is there. Now, can they be a more balanced attack is going to be the question to me, because I thought the offensive line did a pretty solid job. They had some decent size up front for Albertus Magnus, which was nice to see. Defensively, they were strong. They were a bend but don't break. They forced a bunch of turnovers last week. Linebacker Edelman made a bunch of plays for them. This guy was somewhere all over the field, and I think he's going to have to be that again, because it starts with stopping the Tuckahoe rush attack, which is pretty darn potent with their stud running back. And going to Tuckahoe, again, offensively, it starts with that offensive line. A little bit more of a veteran presence, guys who've been on that line for a couple years. And that stud running back Mars, who has been a beast. He had 155 yards rushing and a touchdown last week, which opens things up for their quarterback, who to me is an improved passer, Nunziata. He was 9-16, 115 yards, 2 touchdowns. He likes to throw it deep, and they like to take the shots, but it all starts with the rush attack to try to draw those DBs in so they can go over the top. Defensively, the defense had 4 sacks last week, Mars, 3 fumble recoveries. Magnus wants to attack off tackle and out on the edge, so it's going to be imperative that these guys tackle in space. And I'm looking at a guy like Chiavetta and this defensive line, who this offensive line has some size to it. So, again, this defense had 4 sacks last week. I think the defensive line is a strength for Tuckahoe. They're going to have to make some plays up front, Mars. Who do you want to talk about?
Well, when you look at this game, I feel like it's very interesting. I think it'll be a pretty even battle, in my opinion. I feel like when you look at Albertus Magnus, they did have a very good job running the ball, passing-wise, they did struggle. Specifically, like you said, they had a pick six. I think that they need to be more efficient when they throw. And if they could do that, it just opens up more of a balanced attack, and I think that would be more beneficial to them. Defensively, they need to really cause some mayhem, and they need to control the line of scrimmage, specifically on the run, because you already know from the offensive point of view from Tuckahoe, Myers is just an animal, right? Yeah. And from their side, they need to just continue that. They need to continue this dominance that they have of running the ball. And if they do so, it's really going to put a lot of teams in a bind. Now, Albertus Magnus is going to really be hurting if that's the case. And defensively, they're just turnover machines. They cause turnovers, and they always capitalize on the mistakes of their opponent. And I really think they have to continue doing that and really just keep that pressure on, right? Keep the pedal to the metal. And I think they should be in a good spot here.
Another game I want to talk about, a B matchup, Mars. Pearl River, who's 0-1 in the North League, at Pleasantville, who's in the South League. They're 1-0. There's a non-league matchup, but an interesting matchup. And last week, Pearl River lost that classic game against Bronxville, at Bronxville, that back-and-forth offensive showcase. Pleasantville won at Hen Hud. And these two teams, Pleasantville's 3-2 versus Pearl River. So pretty even back and forth. But last time they played was in the spring, where Pleasantville won 13-8. And let's go to Pearl River. Offensively, I thought they were really explosive against Bronxville in both the running game and the passing game. Last week they rushed for 223 yards, 5 yards per carry, Mars, 2 touchdowns. And it was a bunch of different guys. It was O'Connell, it was Carbone, it was Dennis. It was even their quarterback O'Neill, who had 87 yards rushing. So they have different guys who can attack you. To me, what impressed me was that offensive line, who I thought blocked pretty well and gave those guys, a bunch of different guys, opportunities to run. But boy, did O'Neill have a game passing the ball. 15-27. Right, would like to see a little more complete, a little more passes, but 311 yards passing, Mars, 5 touchdowns. This guy was slinging it. He was accurate. He made good decisions. He made some big-time throws, and his main target was Vitiello, who had 11 receptions for 218 yards, Mars, and 4 of those touchdowns. And I would imagine that this connection is going to try to do that again against Pleasantville's defense. I just think they have a nice balance to them. They can run the ball with some power with that offensive line, with some different backs. And, O'Neill showed that he can hit some big plays when you give him time. And I think that balanced attack is going to try to come after Pleasantville. Defensively, they have to do a better job of stopping the running game. Again, they have to do a better job of, I think all around, tackling. There were too many blown coverages. It was just, there were some ugly moments for the defense that gave up too many big plays. And they definitely have to correct that. But to me, it starts on the defensive line with Responti. He was one of the better defensive linemen. He was a Frank's finest Mars. He was all over the field, very disruptive. And going against a young offensive line or an inexperienced offensive line in Pleasantville, this is a guy who can make some plays. Another guy, McLaughlin, he had another guy with 12 tackles and a sack. These are two guys defensively that were all over the field. Although defense struggled as a whole, those two guys made some plays. And to me, again, attacking that inexperienced Pleasantville offensive line is going to be key for this defensive line to try to help that secondary that struggled last week. Looking at Pleasantville, Mars, offensively, I think you're going to see a heavy dose of Cotter and Daniel Picard, 2 of their better runners. They hurt Hen Hud, doing different, inside runs, outside runs, a heavy dose of those 2 guys. But I think what really hurt Pearl River was quarterback runs. Quarterback runs really hurt them. Obviously, Connor O'Neill's one of the better athletes on Bronxville, but I wouldn't surprise me to see Daniel Picard do some quarterback, some of that power read or zone read or whatever, or just getting those guys out on the edge, because that's what hurt. You might not have the same quarter like LaCapria. I think has an opportunity to hit some plays in the passing game, which hurt Pearl River clearly, but he's not that same running guy that a guy like O'Neill was. So I'm interested to see, do they mix it up? And maybe it's not changing, doing different quarterback stuff. It could be doing some of the jet stuff, some of the quick throws out on the edge to try to create that kind of, attack the edge type of feeling that Bronxville hit Pearl River with. And I think that is something that Pleasantville can do. And on the defensive side of the ball, I think creating pressure is going to be big. We know Pleasantville likes to be near the line of scrimmage, have a bunch of guys near the line of scrimmage. They have to create some pressure because, those DBs are going to be on a bit of an island. And I thought they did a pretty solid job last week against Hen Hud, but there was opportunities where wide receivers did get behind the defensive backs a little bit. And last week we saw Hen Hud hit those big plays Pearl River hit those big plays that Hen Hud did not. And, if you get those guys like that wide receiver Vitiello behind, he made some big-time plays in the passing game. So the Pleasantville defensive backs have to stay disciplined, have to communicate. And that's a big part of secondary, communication, especially when you go into zone, right? You have to know who's got what, and you have to know, again, you're covering a space until someone enters it, and people can enter and leave zones. So it's important for communication for Pleasantville. And I think if they can create some pressure and be disciplined with coverage, I think they have a good chance of winning this game, Mars. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, this game is going to be pretty interesting. I feel like when you look at the Pearl River game, there's been a lot of hype around it because of just the high scoring. It was a showdown, right? And they had a big comeback, and they almost pulled off the victory. And I think that when you look at Pearl River, I think that, they were just explosive. I think that was kind of the key word you always have to think about. And they were just moving the ball in many different facets. I think that, I think they have the big offensive line that really does kind of move some bodies around, and they showed that pretty well against Bronxville. And their offense they were just moving, right?
Yeah.
And defensively, I feel like they had struggles because there's like all this scoring that was going on, and I just felt like
really the outside stuff and the passing.
I feel like the biggest thing when you watch that game was that the defense felt as if they lost some air, because everything. It felt like both teams on offense were just moving, right? It felt like they had a different energy about them, and then defensively, it felt like it looked like that was their way of resting because offensively they were just going nuts, and I feel like they can't fall into that trap. You have to have a solid defensive presence, and then continually continually moving with your offense. From Pleasantville's perspective, I think that when you look at this, obviously the two biggest playmakers on the run game are going to be Daniel Picard and Kieran Cotter, right? But then if you really look at the other playmakers that really need to step up, and you saw it last week with like Eric Coleman, a young guy like Eric Coleman, who definitely was a big piece on the offense, but it's going to also come from Michael LeCapria. I think he's going to have a solid game with not a lot of mistakes, and he needs to be efficient. But as you mentioned, the whole concept of even just quarterback runs, you have to also mention like Aiden Picard, like who is
the other Picard.
He's the other Picard brother, and he's a guy that is a multi-tiered athlete that's playing receiver, but also is a quarterback, and he's a more mobile quarterback compared to LeCapria. But I think that when you look at those guys, they have a lot of playmaking ability. But the big thing that I always mention with Pleasantville is about the playing of the young guys, right? And I think that like when you look at last week defensively, Ryan Horgan was a guy that was definitely had a lot of big plays that they needed for him to do. And obviously you're going to have Miller is definitely going to be a force on the defensive side, a force that you need to see, right? You're going to need to see that happen. And then I think the most important thing is going to be the offensive line, right? I think that can they consistently play well, and can the chemistry keep building? It's going to be led by Michael Gordon, right? And I think that when you look at this offensive line, they have a lot of potential, right? But the problem is that they are very young, right? And I think that, the thing is that they don't have a consistent just five. You have guys rotating in.
Well,
right?
You're seeing who's trying to separate themselves.
Exactly.
But there's a guy on Pearl River and Responti who is a problem.
Yes.
For any offensive line. And I know that they're probably going to be looking to stopping him.
Exactly. And I think that that's going to be the important thing, whether the offensive line has a great game or not. That will definitely set the stage for this rush offense. And defensively, it's really, can you set the pressure, right? I think that's going to be the most important thing.
Yeah. Let's go to another B matchup, Mars. Byram Hills, who's 0-1, at Westlake, who's 1-0. And this is a league game in the North Division. And Byram Hills lost last week versus Ardsley. Westlake won at Putnam Valley. And again, this is the rematch of last spring's B championship. So this is an intriguing matchup. But Byram Hills is 9-0 versus Westlake, Morris. They're 9-0 versus Westlake since 2004, including 2 wins in the spring. They played them twice, including that victory in the B championship, like I just mentioned. And let's start with Byram Hills. Offensively, you're going to see the spread. You're going to see some gun wing T. with the tight end wing and with Twins backside. And, you're going to see some mixtures. And I thought Byram Hills offensively, I was impressed by their quarterback, Jared Cohen. And he was 15 to 26, 266 yards and a touchdown. They hit some big plays in the passing game, some deep balls to guys like Gino Secchiano, who he had 7 catches for $150 and a touchdown. Westlake is not easy to run against, right? Because they like to create a lot of penetration. They have defensive linemen who normally can move and get into gaps, and linebackers who are really aggressive. But I do think that Byram Hills has the size advantage. And on the offensive line, guys like Gluckman, who can try to move people and move bodies. And I think Byram Hills, although made a lot of plays in the passing game, I think they can have a balanced attack. Running won't be easy, right? And it's good that they can rely on a passing game that was pretty potent. But I do think that they can make some plays in between the tackle because of the size advantage. Defensively, Mars, you're facing the spread. And Westlake, you normally you see some, and you saw it in the spring, going into a bunch of spread concepts, pulling farther away from the wing T stuff. But I thought they played pretty physical against an Ardsley team, and just at times they just couldn't get off the field. Couldn't make that necessary plays on 3rd down, 4th down to get off the field, and they had to do a better job, especially against the run. They gave up over 200 yards. And Westlake, they like to spread you out, but they're looking to run, right? They want to run the ball. They have a stud quarterback who's a bell cow for them. So the big thing is stopping the run is going to be big, and they have to do a better job of that. And going to Westlake, again, to me, offensively, it all starts with their quarterback and linebacker, really their best guy, Anthony Archiello, the senior. He was a bell cow for this team. He had 3 rushing touchdowns. He had passing touchdown against Byram Hills. We know there's going to be heavy focus on him, but we're going to need to see some other guys step up and make plays, and they did some of that last week, but you're definitely going to see an emphasis on it because Byram Hills is going to be bailing out to stop him, so that's going to be big. But they're going to be running out of those spread looks, and defensively, a lot of inexperience. And so I would imagine they're going to be shifting their coverage to Secchiano, who is a deep threat guy, hit quite a few go routes, but they have to be wary of those rollouts, and Cohen made a bunch of plays rolling out and off play action. It's going to be really important for those edge guys to maintain lane discipline. Mars, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah, when you look at this game, like you said, it's a rematch of the B championship, and I think that when you look at Byram, they did lose a lot of key players.
Both teams lost.
Yeah, they lost a lot of key players, but I think that Byram still showed a pretty good matchup against Ardsley. But I think that it's going to be really up to to this offense to just keep making big plays. I feel like that was the big thing that they were missing. They need to have some big plays, some game breaker plays that will capitalize on any sort of mistake that Westlake is going to have. And I think that it's going to be, Westlake is difficult to run against for sure. But if you can establish the run in some sense, right, it opens up your playbook to do a lot, because you do have this very interesting concept of doing spread and with some wing T sets, which is going to be a very difficult thing to prepare for, right? You have to be ready for it. And I think that you have the size advantage, so use that size advantage, right? And defensively, you're going up against a spread. I feel like you need to just make sure you get off the field, right? You struggled doing that against Ardsley, and I think that if you can actually find a way to get your offense back on, you'll have more chances to score, which is just going to give you a higher chance of winning this game. That's just as easy as it is. For Westlake, you just need other people to make the big plays. I feel like you're relying too specifically on some.
Well, he's a good player, so you are going to lie, but you need to beat a Byram Hills
just
team.
One guy. You need to have several that are going to step up and make the plays. And I think the important thing is going to be establishing the run and basically just keep working the punches from there, right? And defensively, set the edge, right? We already know that it's important to keep everything inside, but specifically on rollouts, I feel like that's going to be important for Westlake to win this game.
Let's go to the game of the week, Mars, and it is a B matchup, and it's Bronxville, who's 1-0, at Nanuet, who is 1-0, and this is a league game in the North. Bronxville last week won versus Pearl River in that class we talked about. Nanuet won versus the Briarcliff Hamilton football program. And these two teams have played each other 3 times. Nanuet is 2-1 versus Bronxville. Last time they played, though, Bronxville won in 2019. I believe it was 29-7. And this is Nanuet's homecoming. Really interesting game. Let's go start with Bronxville first. Offensively, got to talk about Connor O'Neill. And that's where it starts. 7 touchdowns last week. Mars 4 passing, 3 rushing. He had like 2 80-yard touchdown runs. He is one of the best athletes in Section 1. And so obviously they're going to rely heavily on him. But I give a lot of credit to this offensive line. Guys like Mays, guys like McCormick. They opened up holes. Other guys on that offensive line too. They all stepped up. And they're going to have to do that again against a physical Nanuet front seven. And, it's not just the front seven that Nanuet's got to deal with. They have some skill guys who are some big targets, guys like Kelty, guys like Stevens, who's 6'4". These are big targets, and they're mismatches for smaller DBs. But there is a caveat, that what happened in Bronxville's offense wasn't all great, right? Turnovers were big. They had too many fumbles, which really brought Pearl River back into the game. Right, so the turnovers they have to clean up. They were sloppy with the ball. They got to make sure that they don't turn the ball over. Defensively, they gave up over 20 points in the fourth quarter, and defensively they have to be better. There was too many blown coverages. They gave up 223 yards on the ground, and Nanuet's got some runners. They have a power runner, downhill runner. They have an explosive runner, and we'll get to. And they also like to run bootlegs with the quarterback. So Nanuet's looking to run the ball, and you got to stop the run. And they're going to be physical with you. So this is a big reliance on those linebackers, the defensive linemen, linebackers like Kelty. They're going to have to play big. Going to Nanuet, Mars, offensively, they're going to hit you with that powerful downhill running style that we talked about. They have that strong runner in Bryson, he's kind of that, run-through contact guy, hard-earned run guy. He's just going to lower his shoulder and run you over. They also have that explosive guy, one of the best backs in the class, Frank's finest, and Moran. He was a stud last week. And then they do the quarterback bootlegs and the play-action pass with Frondy, who can really hurt you with his legs when you don't set the edge. And, when he sets his feet, he can make some deep throws. So this is a nice little potent attack they have. They kind of want to control the clock, control the game, and I think that's going to be the mindset to keep Connor O'Neill on the sideline would be the best way. And that's by running the ball and having these long drives. Defensively, again, keeping O'Neill inside the tackle box. The defensive backs have to be disciplined because what Bronxville did, Mars, is they run this kind of the RPO style where it looks like a quarterback run, but he can pull out and throw right before he passes the line of scrimmage to his receivers. So when the DBs is like, okay, I got to bail out for the run, and then those wide receivers slip right by him, he hit some big-time plays against Pearl River doing that. So the DB's got to be disciplined, and those edge guys have to keep O'Neill in the tackle box because that's what's going to tempt those DBs to come up, because if the DBs just stay with the wideouts and the edge guys don't set the edge, O'Neill's going to take it down the sideline, and he hit 2 80-yard touchdown runs. I mean, this guy is explosive. So that's going to be the big thing. Mars, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah, this game is going to be interesting. I feel like when you look at the most important is going to be Connor O'Neill. He was straight up just showed he was a dominant player last game, and he was doing anything he wanted. He was just shows all of his athleticism, but really his offense in general, specifically the offensive line, was just opening up lanes, right? And they were really just protecting him in a lot of cases, and I think that they did that for all their skill players. But there were times where they basically allowed for Pearl River to come back in the game.
Turnovers.
They just inefficient at those and just being undisciplined, turnovers too often, and I just feel like that's something that you really need to key in on from this point going forward. Defensively, Nanuet, you already know they're going to run the ball, right? It's really about whether and they're going to play aggressive too. They're going to look to try to run out the clock on you, and I feel like you need to make sure you control line of scrimmage and make sure that you get your offense back on the field. You get Connor O'Neill back on the field, right? That's going to be the most important thing. And for Nanuet, you need to run the ball and keep Connor O'Neill off the field, right? You need to have these efficient first and second downs, and so that your third down you can kind of mess around with Bronxville and really throw in some rollouts, right? Throw in some of those plays that you put your athletes on the line and you try to get your quarterback to the outside and see you can break contain, right? I think that's going to be something that's important. And for defensively, you need to make sure Connor O'Neill does not break the contain. In my opinion, he shows how deadly he is, whether it's that RPO style of pass where he'll just run to the sideline, everyone bails, and he'll just dump it right to his receiver, or he'll just outrun you to the sideline. You need to make sure you keep contained, and I think that's going to be really important for Nanuet this week.
The matchup I'm looking at, Mars, this Bronxville offensive line versus a Nanuet front seven that is physical. That's going to be an intriguing matchup. And the player to watch, we talked about him, Connor O'Neill. I want to see the encore of what he does against a different type of defense. I think this defense probably has a little bit more speed than Pearl River, so I'm interested to see how he fares with that. Ready to go to the game picks?
Yeah, man, I'm ready to roll.
Let's do it. And the game picks, we want to get over 75% correct by the end of the season. And, last week I was 24-5, Mars. That's 83%. You were 22-6, which was 79%. And in the CD and Hudson Valley Football League picks, I went 12-0, Mars, and you went 10-1. So pretty good.
That's
I
not
want to
bad.
try to keep that up. But let's continue. Hopefully we can continue. Let's first game, Putt Valley 0-1 at Hen Hud, who's 0-1. This is a League South game. And I'm going to go with Hen Hud, Mars. I think quarterback McGuire, he made some nice plays in the passing game, but he also did miss some throws. There were some drops by his receivers. But Hen Hud, I like the way they played defensively. They swarmed to the ball. They did give up some big plays, but overall, I think the defense is pretty good. And Putt Valley is still a team trying to figure out itself, right? So I do think, again, I thought they played decently well against Westlake, but I think Hen Hud is going to make a few more big plays. I think Hen Hud is going to win.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I think Hen Hud is going to win this game. I think they were very tough defensively last week, and I feel like they do have the playmakers on offense to really just kind of open up the game. And I think that that's what they're going to do this week. I'm picking Hen Hud.
Pearl River 0-1 at Pleasantville, who's 1-0. This is a non-league game. It's important to understand that. You're obviously not going to pick this game for obvious reasons, but Pleasantville defensively, they like to swarm. They like to be near the line of scrimmage. The question I have is, can they make enough plays in the passing game and outside runs to kind of attack this Pearl River defense that struggled last week? But Pearl River's offense, they can hurt you with the run and pass. And to me, the question is, can they be better tacklers on the defensive side of the ball? This was a tough one. I went back and forth a lot with it. But I'm actually going to go Pearl River. I think Pearl River is going to win because I do think Pearl River has more of a veteran defensive line that is going to overmatch the Pleasantville offensive line a little bit this week. And I do think that they're a growing offensive line, but I don't think they're ready yet. And I think a guy like Responti is going to make some disruptive plays, and I'm going with Pearl River. Let's go to the next game. Hudson Valley Football League game, Mars. Goshen 0-1 at Greeley, who is 2-0. Greeley's been a surprise team. Well, not really, because we were both kind of high on Greeley, so not a surprise team to us. But I really like the way in Greeley their quarterback Wall is playing. He's kind of a spark plug. And another thing that's impressed me is the Greeley front. Guys led by Koku. I just think that they have been solid. But this is going to be a kind of a step up. I think Goshen has a size advantage. I think they're going to be running the ball downhill. I'm actually going to go with Goshen to win this one. But I do think it'll be a tight game. And, again, I do like the way Greeley's playing, but I'm going to go with Goshen.
I'm going to go Greeley. This is going to be their third straight win. I think this is going to be another good showing from their offense. I think they're going to kind of click on all cylinders. Their offensive line is going to be pushing forward and giving a lot of time to their quarterback, and I feel like they're going to win this one.
I think that if they can protect him, they have some playmakers who can make plays on Greeley. Let's go to a C matchup Saturday. Dobbs Ferry 1-0 at Rhineck, who's 0-1. This is a league game, and looking at Rhineck, they're still trying to figure it out. I think they gave up too many big plays, too many big rushes. At times they were playing pretty good, but then when you break contain, that's really what kills you. And I'm looking at Dobbs Ferry, who has that potent rush attack. Guys like Sanzo, Dan, Marsland. I thought the defense played pretty solid last week as well, limiting points. I'm going to go with Dobbs Ferry. I just think they have too much, and with that veteran front, they can cause some problems.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Dobbs Ferry too. I feel like they do have too much veteran presence for Rhineck to really contain. I think that I said this before, I think Dobbs Ferry is going to be the top team, and I think that they're just going to keep kind of steamrolling through. They have a very potent rush attack, and I think they're just going to kind of run this clock out pretty quickly.
Another Saturday game, Ardsley 1-0 at Briarcliff Hamilton football program, who's 0-1. This is another League South game. When I look at Briarcliff Hamilton, I thought you're going to see a better start this week than there was last week. I thought they were getting comfortable, and you saw them play better against Nanuet in the second half. I still believe in two of the better athletes in Savage and Rispoli, but I thought the front was playing better, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They were swarming better. But I just think Ardsley's just too potent offensively. Quarterback Ballarge and running back Phelan, both those two guys combined had over 350 yards of offense. It was just extremely potent, and defensively, again, they gave up too many deep pass plays. I do think they have to do a better job of keeping everything in front of them, but I do think they can win up front. They have good size up front. We know about Watson at the linebacker spot. Again, to me, it's about keeping Savage in between the pocket. But they have to be wary of Rispoli because he can hit big plays. But I do think Ardsley does. I just think they're too potent on offense. I'm going with Ardsley.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on Ardsley. I think they just have too much going on the offense and defensive side. I think that Briarcliff is just struggling a little bit, and I think Ardsley is just going to overwhelm them with a lot of their skill players. So I'm going to go Ardsley.
Next is a Hudson Valley Football League game on Saturday. Poughkeepsie, who's 0-1, at Peekskill, who's 0-1. And Peekskill, to me, I like the fight that they showed in the second half of Irvington. I know they went down quickly. Again, this is a team that had limited practices, trying to get their culture back together. I'm going to go with Poughkeepsie. I think this could be their running back Moore's show. They had the game canceled, like I mentioned, and I think they have some, guys like Moore who can hit some big plays that Peekskill can't match, and so I'm going to go with Poughkeepsie.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I think Poughkeepsie just has more skilled players. I just think Peekskill doesn't have the ability to match those guys. But yeah, I really think that Peekskill will get there at probably later in the season. But I just think that Poughkeepsie has just more in the tank right now.
Let's go to the C&D matchup. We talked about this. Albertus Magnus 1-0 at Tuckahoe, who's 1-0. And I think Magnus is going to – they like to get the ball out on the edge. They like to hit you with jet sweeps, off-tackle runs, some of those quick passes. I think they're really going to test the speed of Tuckahoe. Defensively, it's all about stopping that run. And when you can stop that run, it'll really take away their play-action pass. But for Tuckahoe, they can pound the rock, and they really showed to me now over the last couple seasons that they can run the ball efficiently. And if they can with Myers and behind this veteran front – that play-action pass can really sucker in those DBs, and Albertus Magnus has aggressive DBs, so you can, if you can run the ball and suck them down and get them looking at the run, you can hit them over the top. This was a hard game to pick, but I'm actually going to go with Tuckahoe. I think at home, I think Tuckahoe makes enough plays. I think they run the ball just enough and hit a couple big pass plays. They're going to win this game, but this is a close one to me. Yeah,
I'm going to go with Tuckahoe. I feel like Myers was one of those top athletes that we've always been praising this whole time. I just think they have just a little bit more, especially when they're going to run the ball and really just kind of control this time of possession. I think I'm going to go with Tuckahoe here. It's going to be a close game, though.
B matchup, Byram Hills 0-1 at Westlake, who's 1-0. This is a League North matchup and a rematch of that B championship in the spring. And, Westlake, again, inexperience. How are they going to defend against this potent pass attack? They got to get pressure, and I think they will try to create some pressure. But, again, I'm looking at this pass attack. I think they can make some plays, and they can win up front on Byram Hill's side. And I think they'll stop the run just enough to win this game. I think Byram Hills wins this one, wins the rematch in the Section B title game. And I think they get back on track. I'm going Byram Hills.
Yeah, I'm going to go Byram Hills as well. I think they just have more on the offensive side that they can attack you with. I think that's just going to be too tough for Westlake to be able to match all the different aspects that they bring to the table. I'm going Byram Hills.
Let's go to C matchup. Valhalla, who's 1-0, at Blindbrook, who's 0-1. Who gave Blindbrook this schedule? They had to play Dobbs Ferry and Valhalla in back-to-back weeks. That's a little bit. But Blindbrook, to me, again, they drew the tough straw, but they battled. And to me, I don't want, Blindbrook has shown growth, and I know it doesn't always correlate to wins directly, but you want to see them keep fighting. I just feel like I got to go with Valhalla. They have too many weapons in the passing game with the quarterback Dawson, who was good last week. He has some of those skill guys who catches passes for him, and the defense played pretty well, and this is going to be another game where I think that they're going to win pretty handily. I'm going to go with Valhalla.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I feel like Blindbrook is still a growing program, and I think Valhalla is already set in stone. They have a lot of athletes, and they're just going to keep growing and just keep pushing the pressure down. You know what I mean? So I think Valhalla is going to win this one.
Class C matchup, Croton Harmon, who's 0-1, at Hastings, who's 0-1. To me, this could be an upset this week. Croton Harmon, again, they have to do a better job defending the pass. They got to keep Robert Kennedy, the quarterback at Hastings, in the pocket. To me, the big question for Hastings is injuries. They had to end the game early last week because of injuries. I'm interested to see how Cap Duano is doing. He had to leave the game. He's a huge player for them. Robert Kennedy, to me, he's a special player. He makes a lot of plays in the passing game, but he cannot turn the ball over. This is a really intriguing game to me, but I am going to go with Hastings. I do think they have enough. But this one could be an upset, and Croton Harmon could win it. But I'm going to go with Hastings in the end.
I'm going to go with the upstate. I'm going to go with Croton Harmon here. I think that the whole injury thing is definitely concerning, and I think that they have really the skill guys. I think it's going to be a close game either way, but I think Croton Harmon is going to pull off the upset, and I think they're going to win here.
This is a CD matchup, Haldane at Woodlands, and Haldane is 1-0, Woodlands is 0-1. Woodlands, their quarterback, he's a game wrecker. I mean, he's a guy who can make a bunch of plays for them. It's a guy that they rely heavily on, but they couldn't stop the run. And Haldane, to be honest, I was impressed with the offensive line. I thought they played pretty well. I thought Gianchinta, he had 101 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. I'm actually going to go with Haldane here, and I think if the offensive line continues to play well, I think they'll be able to run the ball pretty consistently, and I think they'll control the game and they'll win it.
Yeah, I'm also going to agree with Haldane. They were very impressive. Their offense has been clicking. It feels like there's a lot of chemistry going with them there. I feel like they're going to win this one pretty easily, so I'm going to go Haldane.
Hudson Valley Football League game Saturday. Irvington 1-0 at Edgemont, who's 0-1. I'm going to go with Edgemont. I think Edgemont did a pretty good job with blocking guys in space, getting some lanes open for their running back. And I just think that Edgemont has a couple skill guys who are going to make some big-time plays. I like what I saw from Irvington, but I do think Edgemont, who has a history of beating Irvington, is going to do it again this weekend.
I'm going with Irvington. I feel like they were on a pretty good roll in the first game with a whole new staff, and the spread was looking pretty nice. And I think that this is going to continue along into the next game. I'm going to go Irvington.
Let's go to the game of the week, Mars. Bronxville 1-0 at Nanuet, who's 1-0. It is Nanuet's homecoming. I think they're doing a neon thing in the fans that I saw on social media, but who do you got and why?
Well, this is tough. I mean, when you look at these two teams, first you have Bronxville, who offensively last week was like a lights-out show. I mean, I think Connor O'Neill was definitely a guy that could do it all, and he was someone that I felt like every team in this section would want to have a quarterback that can do what he did, right? And I think the fact that it was not even just him; it was offensive line was really playing well. His skill players around him were also very efficient, and the only downside was the defense was struggling, and maybe it could be doing something along the lines of there's a lot of guys on the other side that are just playing lights out, so the defense couldn't match the energy. Maybe, but when you look at Nanuet, they're going to run, smack mouth football. They're really going to just try to run around you or run right through you. And I'm wondering if Bronxville's, defense can really handle that. And that's going to be the big question of the day. But I'm going to go with Bronxville. I think that Bronxville has the skills around them to really, if they're going to score, they're going to score fast. And the question is going to be whether, I don't see Bronxville's defense struggling the same way they did 2 weeks in a row. Like, I don't think now. That doesn't mean they're gonna be perfect, but I don't think they're gonna just give up what was it, 400 yards?
Over 400.
Over 400 yards rushing.
500 total yards.
Yeah,
not rushing.
No, I meant like total yards. But do I think they'll do that again? No. I think they'll be a lot more tougher. I think this week, I guarantee you, the coaching staff was definitely harping on them to say we cannot allow this to happen against Nanuet, because if they do, this game will be over quickly, because Nanuet will just control the time of possession, right? And I don't think Bronxville's going to let that happen. I think I'm going to pick Bronxville here.
Interesting game. Again, Bronxville, first test was beating a big school in Pearl River, coming back in Class B. Now they have to go on the road, hostile environment, against Nanuet. Nanuet runs that smash mouth physical football where they can control the time of possession. And if you turn the ball over like they did last week, it could really put your team in a bind. Now, we know of Connor O'Neill, but Nanuet's got some guys too. Right? They got multiple guys who can run. They got their quarterback Frondy. They got Moran, who's a stud at homecoming with the fans going crazy. How could you pick against Nanuet? But I am going to pick against Nanuet. I'm going to go with Bronxville as well. And I got my Bronxville shirt right here, if I could pull it out for it. Bronxville's going to go into Nanuet, Mars, and they're going to win in Nanuet's homecoming. And Connor O'Neill's going to put on a show with some of those skill guys. I got my love for Nanuet out there, but Bronxville's going to pull the upset. Go Broncos, baby. They're going to win, Mars. All right, everyone. That was our show. We appreciate everyone for tuning in. We hope you guys have a great weekend, enjoying some football, and we'll see you all very soon.